My children would like to also go to birthday parties and celebrate and so on. I sit them down and I explain to them what the candles are all about. Do you know what the candles on a birthday party are all about? In ancient Europe, when the winters were so bad that people used to go into literal hibernation to keep themselves warm in whatever way they had. And when they would come out, they would count the dead. Did you know that? They would count the dead. And in order to celebrate the fact that those who are alive have passed through the winter and survived and fought nature, which means nature came to kill us in the form of cold. And because we fought nature and we stayed alive, now we need to defy it by blowing out candles. So they would put how many ever candles of their age and blow them out to show we can defy it. It's something that we believe is rooted in the medieval Europe. And it comes with its own satanic origins and so on. But people today say, what's wrong? What's wrong? I'm blowing the candles. But you don't realize it's like an act of worship of the pagans. And we're saying, and people have made it a culture and a tradition. The same applies to so many other things. Like Valentine's and so on. People start saying, but what's wrong? How come these people, you're not allowed to show your love? Well, to be honest, we're being fooled by believing that, you need to celebrate the fact that you're 1 year older by throwing a big party, everyone must come, but you don't know that now you're closer to your grave, for example. Or there are more responsibilities on your shoulder. If I had it my way and you had it your way, we would be throwing parties because our kids put pressure on us, so do mine. But we have to speak to them, address them, try and explain to them, and get to the origins of it. The sad reality is, people take part wholesale. So they'll tell you, but they did it. But these people did it. That's the peer pressure. Sadly, we're living in an age, al-qabidu ala dinihi kal-qabidi ala jamr. A person who wants to hold fast to the deen is someone similar to he who is holding fast to, a red hot coal, for example. So you find even families which are supposedly religious, they have these big birthday parties and so on, whereas it is Islamically incorrect. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best.
Obviously the roots were either Roman or Christian, or there was something, they obviously came from somewhere. But then I would argue that, look, let's take a look at the Hajj. I've got a whole video, you can check it on YouTube, on the Black Stone and on Safa and Marwa, explaining that, look, Safa and Marwa and the Black Stone and these things were most likely all pagan practices before Islam. They weren't something that, this story that Hajar alayhi salam kind of ran between Safa and Marwa is most likely made up by later Muslims, because the Quran actually tells you about Safa and Marwa and does not mention that story, although it was the perfect time to mention the story. Right, so you had, in fact, if you read the tafasir, read Qurtubi, these other mufassirin, Qurtubi mentions that وَقَالَ بَعْضُ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ مِنَ الْأَنصَارِ, that some of the great knowledgeable companions from Medina, when they came to Mecca, they refused, when they were on the Hajj, they refused to do Safa and Marwa, because they said that this is from the Jahiliyyah, pagan practices of the people of Mecca. Because on Safa and Marwa, it was not Hajar. There was a female goddess called Na'ila, and there was the male goddess Isaf. And they were lovers that had violated the sanctuary, and they were turned to pillars of stone. And it was the yearning between them, the running between them, that was this act of display between two lovers. This is the true history of Safa and Marwa. It's not Hajar ran 7 times. This was just something that later Muslims just kind of made up so they could build a bridge with other Arabs in the Middle East, just to say that no, it's got Abrahamic roots to it. Because how do we know this? Because the Ansar themselves said that we refuse to do Safa and Marwa. This is from Jahiliyyah. This is Na'ila and Isa. What have we got to do with them? Gods. And Allah says in the Quran, Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'airillah. That yes, now Safa and Marwa, it may have had a history, but now they are seen as symbols and symbolic of God. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ, and here تَطَوَّعَ does not mean مَنْ تَنَفَّلَ, because it's not nafil, it's not voluntary, it's an obligatory act of Umrah and Hajj, Safa and Marwa. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ أَيْ مَنْ حَسِبَهُمَا طَاعَةً لِلَّهِ. Whosoever took these things to be a ta'ah for Allah, an act of worship, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَاكِرٌ عَلِيمٌ. Then indeed Allah is grateful for you seeing this as a practice to God. Because your physical acts don't reach God, it's your devotion. So Allah could have said, oh, inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'air Hajar wa Ibrahim, when, what is it, عندما سعت Hajar بينهما وسبع مرات, and this Hajar when she ran 7 times, and Allah never said any of that. And it was the ideal, it was the time to say it. Because they were asking, they were saying, this is pagan, we don't want to. Allah said the truth, that look, whatever it was, but what is it now? Now, it's something which these people that are doing it are remembering God. So whoever now accepts it, fine. You know, Allah is grateful for your worship. Now, the Black Stone. The Black Stone most likely did begin, you know, many centuries before, maybe 1 or 2 centuries BC, before Jesus, with the main pilgrimage thing beginning in Petra. That is most likely because the rest of the Arabs seem to be influenced by the Nabateans. The Nabatean Arabs and their main god, which was the big black stone, Dushera. And you've got, because of, there's so many volcanoes right throughout Arabia, that there's, you know, so many volcanoes, that either volcanic residue, which you find these black stones, or it was a meteorite, the black stone that fell, and people therefore associated some divinity with it. But in the time of Islam, because people just saw it as a kind of ritual, and they just had that respect to it, it was left there, and respected. That's why Umar said that, Ya Hajar Aswad, you are nothing. He said to the black stone, that's a Sahih Hadith. He said, إِنَّكَ لَا تَنْفَعْ وَلَا تَضُرُّ. You can't do anything. You can't harm, you can't benefit, you are meaningless. He said, but I saw the Prophet kiss you once, so I will kiss you. Now this, you see, this is important, because we understand that there were several practices. What do you think the practice of Arafah was? Arafah, don't say Ibrahim alayhi salam went to Arafah as well now. Arafah was the marketplace. It was where all the Arab tribes would gather on their pilgrimage. So you've got here that, look, Arafah was when it was one of the marketplaces, the Mosam. So they used to, you know, the caravans, they would have markets each month of the year at a different place within the Arab kingdoms. And in Dhul Hijjah, it would reach Arafah. That's where the markets would be. And then they would have that at the plain just before Arafah there. They would have that for 8 days. Then they would have they would get to have that kind of like a celebratory thing. They would get together, stand at Arafah. They would have Yom Tarwiyah. They would do these things. And these practices were then, Quraysh would only keep Mecca for themselves. They were the only people doing tawaf around Mecca. So the truth is that yes, there were some pagan origins to you know, some of the Hajj practices, but in the time of Islam, those things had disappeared. So Islam just kept it. So today, when you look at these practices here of, let's say, a Christmas tree or Santa Claus or getting together, yes, there would have been some origin. If you go back 1,000 years or 1,500 years, there would have been some origin that would have originated somewhere. You know, maybe it was a pagan practice, maybe it was a Christian practice, maybe it was some other kind of practice. But today, it doesn't have that value. Not for these people partaking in it. So thereby, it is permissible. Cool, people. I hope that's of some help. That's in considerable detail.